It's LinkedIn Live Hour of Empower. Today's word is perseverance. I put it out there early so everybody can start thinking about it, thinking what it means to them, hopefully share and contribute to others what your thoughts are, because your thoughts can become other people's thoughts or a part of them. And we're here to empower people. And the best way we can do that is through chat. So chat's open. We'd love to be more relevant, more directed towards whatever it is that you want to learn or what you want to share so others can learn. And, this is like a practiced activity that we've been doing for so long, so I don't have to go into great detail. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Kelly. Everybody knows Kelly. I'm so happy to have Kinga here again as making up that trio. We've got a first comment from Jennifer. Thank you for coming, Jennifer. I believe I've seen you before, and so happy to have you back. Leslie's here. Leslie is just unbelievable, our Saturday person, along with Melissa Cohen. I hopefully see them back in September, taking some time off. Leslie's going to the beach, and she even sent me a picture before she left. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Kelly, and Kelly can bring us up to date and share her first thoughts on the definition of perseverance.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from. Perseverance, what a great word. And I will say when I first saw it, my immediate thought was tenacity. I'm like, I think they're pretty interchangeable. And tenacity is just a great word. But perseverance, I think, of course, like every other word we have on, it can go in so many different directions. But I think particularly being on LinkedIn, so many of us can understand about how you've got to persevere through the job market and searching for work because it's hard. And perseverance, and I believe by definition, it's what you continue to move forward regardless of how difficult it may be to get to the final goal. And a lot of people are definitely struggling in the job market and finding work. And I know many are going like, man, I don't even know what to do anymore. And they stop, but having conversation and everybody's motivating each other to keep going. So I think, that's beautiful. And that's part of even this community is when we're struggling to be like, hey, I need some help to continue to persevere. I need to get to my goal, but I'm feeling stuck. And the other thing I thought was generally what makes us stop on something is based on fear of some sort. Whether or not it's uncharted territory that we're not aware of how to tread through, or our insecurity, which of course is led by fear. So I think there's so many ways and then beautiful stories, of course, about perseverance and people that have gone through so many difficult things, but then when they finally made it to that goal, how much sweeter it was in the end. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one for sure. And I'm super excited to have Kinga with us today. So girlfriend, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I'm excited about this word because I was thinking a lot about how perseverance is taking us through a journey and it's getting us to some kind of end state, right? And so I like to think a lot about that end state. And I was thinking about how a lot of times our end state is around our values and how we end up on some kind of chosen path, and it's gonna be what drives us there. And so what's really within us that brings us there. And so we're persevering through hard times, but we're going to show up in the way that we want to and what we've chosen for ourselves. So it's just a really interesting topic around how we get to our end goals and why we persevere. And sometimes it's not where we even think we're going to land, and it's within us to bring us to an end state. So I'm excited to talk about it and get deeper.
Well, that's great. I think Kelly and Kinga have really teed it up for me, because when I think of perseverance, I think of the opposite of quitting.
Yeah.
You know, and I know through so many journeys and trials and tribulations, I wanted to quit. There are times I felt I should quit, but two things got in the way. Is what I was moving towards was worth waiting another day, taking another step. And in a lot of cases, to be honest, there was no door out, right? Sometimes you're persevering through where you don't have an escape. I mean, it's like stay still or go forward, but you can't go back because you're already back. You know, when you're totally against the wall and everybody and everything has disappeared on you, the only thing left is belief.
Yep.
Right? Because everything that's physical, everything that's around you is what it is. You know, things just don't materialize with your thoughts. But if you can visualize, if you can believe in what's over the hill without having any idea that it is, and when you're in it, what's so interesting, because I've been in it, when you don't settle for what everybody else is settling for, you risk more. Right? When someone says, I'll take the money and run, and someone says, well, I'll throw it back in the pot and go for more. You're at a position where you want to see the end of what you can be instead of settle for less. Right? And you'd rather fail at something that was heartfelt and had huge value to you than succeed at something that's totally superficial at best, dishonest typically. And there's a saying by Shakti Gawain, I believe it's how you say it, and she says, when the pain of holding on is greater than the fear of letting go, you let go. Right? And in perseverance, it's the loneliest place.
Yeah.
And, if you're 10 feet lost or 10 miles lost, you feel just as lost until you're found. And the only thing you can do is find crutches, find a saying that gets you through a day, right? Find a picture that inspires you enough to say one more day. Because what I do believe, there's so many people right now who are closing the light switch on their office, their store, their business, not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't worthwhile. It's because they just got tired. They couldn't come up with anything more, right? I mean, they just got exhausted and frustrated. And that's where that helping hand, that helping voice, and even this show, and shows like it could instill in somebody is, hey, I didn't think of that. Or, hey, the more important thing, I think it's to Kelly's point, is the fear factor.
Yeah.
How worse can it be than what it already is? And then when you realize, at least you're doing something, sitting, watching, waiting, fearing, just compounds it. So anyways, I know I went into a lot of detail, but it is from personal experience, and you always have doubt. One day you can be so confident, and the next day it's like everything came back as to why it can't be or won't be. But you know what I always decided? I'm not going to beat myself at anything. Someone's going to have to beat me. Someone's going to have to take it. I ain't giving it up. And when you have that firm commitment, right? I may not be going forward, but I'm not going down, right? And that's so key to yourself, because after a while you find out that what you were concerned about was an episode of your life, not your life, right? It was a job, it was a relationship, and if you have other things in your life, and especially other people, and that's where community helps, that's where you fall into. That's where you take a 3-day, hey, I'm not going to think about nothing. I'm just going to be here with everybody, absorb whatever it is. But before we go too deep, I can see that I'm far behind on the people and the comments, and the audience is just incredible. It really is. I mean, you couldn't have fabricated this. This had to, be natural, organic in every way. We said hello to Leslie. We've got a new gentleman from Tunisia. Thank you, Sapta. Hopefully I pronounced it right. Leslie says our careers, business, and personal lives require perseverance. Yeah. So sometimes you just get into the habit I'm going to persevere, which is really, I'm going to lean into this. Yeah. Right? Perseverance only happens when you have resistance, and if you lean into it, and most of the time it's plateauing. I reach this level I can't break through. How do I get through? Shifa's here. Happy Thursday. I'm trying to get a Shif on the show one day. Right. So he has an open invitation. We can chat about your hat. Great, Dennis. Dennis is a great spirit. I mean, he perseveres through comedy, and just like Harry perseveres through humor. Renee Debs is here every day. Wonderful to join the discussions. Harvey, everybody knows Harvey from yesterday. Oh, perseverance, wasn't that the one I had juggling as a prop? Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
Yeah. One thing about Harvey, you'll always remember him by what he does, not just what he says, how he shows up, because he loves bringing props. How can you beat someone who won't give up? You can't. And why give up anyways? Because what are you giving up to? Right? I mean, if not this, where are you going? With who and what? And I always say, stay on the bus until you know when the transfer's taking place. At the same time, sometimes, and I've done it, and it's not easy to do. You walk away from things where you're so conflicted, right? It could be there's so much money I could make here, right? But then here's what I'm going to deal with. And do I want that? And at the end of the day, I think perseverance tests priorities. Is this worth what I'm about to do? Right? Do I need that bad that I'm going to put myself in that challenge or struggle? And sometimes through persevering, you decide a whole new ball game. You don't have to follow your original goal. Eugene's here. Haven't seen you, Eugene, in a while. Harvey's see the end of something you can be. That's a takeaway for me right there. Sometimes, what you really got to do is you got to detach. Sometimes reality is so difficult that you just have to leave the place that you haven't left yet. Right? And I always say, if I bought a ticket, I got to see that in a movie. I'll just never know, and especially if it's my movie, let it end on a natural note, if possible. And what you find is if you face fear, sometimes fear blinks. Dennis says, agrees, show up, not off. Perseverance, Ashif says, is naturally within us all since conception. Harvey's moving and shaking today. Sorry, didn't start with a cheery hello, so hello to the wonderful Kelly. Kinga and one and only. Thank you, Harvey. Harvey's the best. He really is. He's got a heart of gold, but you know what? He understands how to make investments in people, in the way he handles himself. He's always professional. He's always at the top of his game, very supportive. With those qualities, perseverance gets easier because everything around you gets friendlier as you get friendlier, as you get happier, as you get more honest. You're building that. Leslie will be here Saturday. Woohoo. Leslie's a big cheerleader, a love child from the 60s. Is there a difference in perseverance and persistence? I kind of see them the same. Yeah, it is pretty typical. I think persistence supports perseverance. But I'll let Kelly take that over after we acknowledge Linda. Oh, a lot of my life has been perseverance and love finding companion here in life to go through it with. Always thankful can be joining in discussion. Linda, being grateful is everything. And during my greatest struggles, I would find the smallest, simplest things I could align with and use them. It could be a picture. I take a picture of my mother and say, what would she be telling me right now? What would she be sharing with me, and include people, you know, because I believe they're always with you, inside you and around you, you know, and sometimes they're there to protect you if you give them a chance. But anyways, that's a little bit more on the woo-woo side. Getting back to Kelly, great start, wonderful audience, tremendous interaction.
Yeah, so many great things off of what y'all were saying, and I think one important thing was, you know, life is all about persistence, or perseverance in some way, and one of the things that you said that really hit something with me was that sometimes when we're put in positions to persevere, we had no idea we were going to end up there. And as an example, when somebody will say like, God, I can't believe you ever went through that. I'd never be able to do it. And it's like, well, but you weren't asked to be there yet, or that hasn't been part of your path. So we don't have a choice sometimes. Like you're in a position and it's like, you got to make a decision. Am I going to persevere, or am I going to sit here in this, and I'll speak from personal, in this darkness, you know, because that place that is so dark in life and not even seeing the light. And, you know, you brought up the point too, John, about hope and faith, having faith to know I've got to continue to move forward. It's going to get better, because our brains always imagine something that is so far, not even close to how bad it's going to be. Our brain always goes to the extreme. And now this is making me think of this morning, and this is not a shameless plug for the Awesome Journey, but shameless plug for the Awesome Journey on Tuesdays at 1:11 p.m. Eastern. One of our big focuses is mental health, and men's mental health has become like naturally evolved, and seeing all these men having conversations and sharing their stories, it's incredible. But it made me also think those are journeys of darkness, and it is perseverance, and being, you know, someone that's gone on a path of that, of being in such darkness, not even seeing the light, is perseverance doesn't have to be like these big movements that we make. They can be the smallest things. And I know I've said this on other shows, but, you know, in a place in my life where it was so dark, I had a list that little check boxes in a list that was get up, get dressed, and go out. And I would check those things off because psychologically we feel accomplishment when we check something off. And as silly as that sounds, maybe to some, when you're in that dark place, it's everything just to get up and to reward yourself and to go. I think on what you were also saying there at the end, Don, was it's a practiced behavior, because once you get up, get dressed, go out, then go out and smile at someone, go out and smile at 3 people, go out. Now it just becomes a habit. Now it's not, you practiced it. It's not something that's scary anymore, because it is a fear, right? I think everything that now we've been saying in perseverance, the things that stop us are usually led by some fear of the unknown or fear of what we think is known. But when we practice it, it becomes easier, and it's not that big of a deal. I mean, clearly now I have no problem getting up and getting dressed and going out and smiling at people. But sometimes that is where we're at. And it's like giving ourselves the grace too, to be like, you know what, it's okay that my accomplishments for the day were getting up. Because I think those are important things to reward ourselves with and give ourselves grace. So anyways, that's kind of what it made me think is just how important. And I think with the job market, people struggling to get work, people are struggling with stuff on the daily. And like you said, sometimes you just have to unplug. I'm that way, because if you get too into it, you're in all your own noise. And it's like, I need to step away and just get a little bit of a reset, because we can spiral in the wrong direction. We get caught in all of our own noise. So I think that's an important factor too, is to be like, you know what, perseverance, you can take a stop and say, I need to reset and rethink this path, and then continue to move forward. But again, I don't think it matters how big or small. And sometimes there's setbacks, you know, sometimes we fall back when we're moving forward. And there's a great, and I don't know who said the saying, but something about a slingshot is, no, a slingshot sometimes pulls back, but it launches you so much farther forward. So falling back doesn't necessarily mean you're falling back. You're falling back to get set up for something even greater than what you imagined. So those are my thoughts right now. What are you thinking now, Kinga?
Those are beautiful thoughts, Kinga.
Yeah, I was thinking about how I'm persistent around some of my thought processes, and around my core values, and that really has been driving me. And sometimes I don't know where I'm going to end up. And so, so some of the things that have been driving me is like, I'm an optimistic person because I believe that is the right thing to do, in order to lead a positive life. I believe that being optimistic is what will get me the results that I want. And that is truly core to my belief system. And so even though I've been in dark places, and trust me, I have thought bad things that like, oh, this is terrible and I don't have support, or I don't have the things and tools, and everything is falling apart and I'm desperate in a lot of ways, just like everybody else, when you're going through something tough. I don't have this Pollyanna just belief system that like it'll all work out, but I do believe that if I stay positive about it, that better things will happen. So I'm persistent about staying optimistic, not because I have a blind faith, but because I believe that being persistently optimistic will drive the right behaviors, will bring the right things, that it's a good way to live. And so it's about my kind of core who I am, and just persistently staying consistent to who I am and what I truly believe. And so just, in the same way, I apply the persistent thought with the type of people that I want to become close to, right? I absolutely think that there's relationships where I want to start holding my respectful boundaries, or things that maybe I haven't been persistent about in my past, where I can apply some learned lessons. And I think that as long as I remain persistent about what really matters to me, it'll lead me in the right direction. So,
well, that's hopeful and inspiring. And, again, it's easier to draw on personal experiences because it's felt experiences. When you're talking philosophy or strategy, it's patching together a bunch of stuff and hoping it works even better in the future in whatever new formulation. But what I realized, because, when I sold the business, I lost everything as far as the ego part of it, as far as the friendships, the support. And I also found so many people had a piece of me that I got back that I was happy to. But so many people, I depended on their involvement to fulfill my life. And when you go from 0 to 60 back to 0 really quick, everything changes. And I think to Kelly's point, the worst part of the day in the beginning was waking up.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as I woke up, I got back to my reality.
Yep.
And what I learned to do over time is get help from other people, from other things. I mean, Leslie Flowers will like it. When I had a really bad setback economically with the business in the 80s, I drove to work, which is only about 20 minutes, with Think and Grow Rich in my cassette player, not even a CD. And I did it for a year and a half. And it was only 2 tapes, altogether maybe an hour. And if you do it every day for a year back and forth, it was magic, because I would leave just throwing myself in the car and mechanically doing something. And when I arrived at work, my whole mind had changed. And leaving work was hard. And that gave me that 20 minutes of someone else telling me stuff, because the loop in your mind is your biggest enemy.
Amen.
Right? If you can get anybody to tell you anything, whether it's a tape, That's when I went to Toastmasters and I was just talking to people who I never knew. I mean, it was like at a hospital, a little room they got. When I start going to speakers and listening. But what happened is I found things in my life I had not really taken attention of. So for the 3 years I left work, I didn't do anything work oriented. But I became the best father, the best grandfather, and the best husband I could ever, because I dedicated myself to the people who were the foundation and the future. And I found out what I made didn't make a difference in the future. And what I had definitely was the cause of most of my issues, because once you have to keep up with the Joneses, or you are the Joneses,
Yeah.
You tend to feel, what will people think? And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, is the people who love you today will love you tomorrow. And the people who don't, never did, probably never will, right? And it sorts. And that's why I think one more thing about perseverance, you find out who your friends are when you need them. Right? Everybody's your friends when times are good and everybody's having a ball, but who's going to come see you on their own because they want to versus having to? And I think those are keys. But I think the other point before I turn it over is, you say to yourself, if I could get through that, I can get through anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to them, I've been through a lot worse. And then you also have to ask yourself, what's the worst possible outcome? And whatever it is, it's not the worst that could ever happen to you, right? So even if the worst things happen, and plus deal with it when it shows up. I think people compound things by today, tomorrow, the next day, it's overwhelming. So Kelly, no, it's King, I believe, is it?
No.
Whoever,
Do you
Kelly.
look at some comments here? I think we've got.
Thank you so much. Kelly's a pro at this. That's good to have her on the show. She says, we always persevere our smiles, just enjoy life with everything you have, and just make your own life just a movie with a smile. Yeah, it's all packaging, presentation, context. Your life is a show. Persistence, perseverance, discipline, the same. It takes, they all kind of intermingle. Rita's here. So happy to have you, Rita. Thank you so much. Leslie comes back with, we are never given something to do that we cannot do. Right. It is a choice to do it or to not do it. Absolutely. And everything in the middle is commentary. Leslie says, believing you will reach the goal even when you don't yet know how you will get there. That is what I think of as perseverance. That's cool. And the thing is, how much perseverance do you need? Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a year, but all you need is whatever you need to get to where you're going that's blocking you. And I think perseverance just says you're in neutral, right? You're not where you want to be, but you haven't given up on it. So you're kind of plateauing or in a holding pattern. Or she says, there are 2 rules of life that have fun with what you do. So true. Always follow rule number 1.
That's right.
If you're happy, you can't be happy and sad at the same time. It's just the way it works. Imagination, a part of mind, as our perception, intuition, memory, reason, and will. So happy to have Professor Leslie with us. She's always got a teaching tool to share. And I say that in the best of ways, Leslie. Linda says, yes, agree, Don. When I got used to my right side back or find fuel to help me through to be the peace. So now grateful for having help with mindset, taking small motion to gain a bigger chance and change, yet still takes action. I think Linda really points out little things done right compound. Little things are easy to do, like Kelly says. Sometimes I just had to say, just breathe, just focus, just make sure you're breathing, and then make sure you're moving a little and you're eating a little. And sometimes I'd have to force myself to eat. I'd have to say, I'm going to eat a little bit of yogurt because I know if I don't, it's only going to be, worse. Leslie says, okay, we covered that. Where are we? Leslie comes back with, fear is automatic and subconscious and not thinking. Practices the conscious mind. which will prevail, the automatic emotional triggers or the will to think of a solution or a new way of looking at something? That's an interesting point. Dennis? Love child from the 60s. If you remember the 60s, you really weren't participating. Yeah, they were different times. Perseverance, it's always worthwhile. Often the jewels can be found with the dig of the shovel.
Yes.
And, your perseverance helps other people persevere. You become the model, right? And somebody will say, if Leslie can do it, or Kelly could do it, or Kinga could do it, I could probably do it. But more importantly, they've done it. Maybe I'll talk to them. That's where you can get some help, is people have already been through it and have been successful or have some tips for you. And usually it's like, you're okay. It's going to be okay. Take my word for it. And most times I say, well, maybe you're right. At least that's a thought. And plus, they know something. Maybe if they know something I don't know. Total commitment, persistence, perseverance, pursuit are all key to reach and achieve. Gosh, these comments are so strong.
Yeah, they're great.
Darkness is just maybe mighty, but a ray of light makes a difference and smiles on our face, and game with it and make darkness laugh and convert. Wow, Leslie's just burning up that keyboard. Coming back this afternoon to finish up replay. Have 11:30 hard stop. No problem. You're authorized to leave. This is agree. It is good for men to mention what is up and what they need to learn. This is our chance for themselves, be themselves. Why not? You never know what you never know. Just be a seeker like Harry Potter. Life will be adventurous. Dennis says, Linda Coleman, thanks for sharing. Vershie says, when we do any task with 100% time, we'll persevere our life gives us. Leslie, Linda says, yes. And when life let me finally get time for me, was much to release, but glad I was given time to begin, and again feeling set free. And that's such a key thing, Linda. Time does cure all things. If you have the time, if you have the patience, if you allow yourself, like Kelly says, the grace. And it always comes down to gratitude. Remember what you do have. Remember what you've had. What a blessed life you've been enjoying. Right? It's been a gift so far. And, nothing's supposed to be up and no down, because there wouldn't be up without a down. Mountains wouldn't mean nothing without valleys, and vice versa. And it's easy to intellectualize that stuff when you're down and out, you got hit by a bus. But, I also find, put it on hold for a day, whatever it is, if you can. You got bad news or something else, put it on the shelf, get back to it, knowing you're going to get back to it. It's not walk away from it. But just say, I'm not in a position to really make any decisions that could be long-term or could make me feel worse for acting in the moment. Down, I want a story, honest and I resonate with your mind over thinking things. I got into podcasts when I had a 6-hour daily commute. They were mostly comedy, and it helped me a lot, because you know what? There's companionship to knowledge. Two audios, 2 videos. And, I know I escape. Sometimes I'll watch a movie or something, and it's like I forgot where I was at. I got so engrossed or involved or entertained by it. And I think that's where you need to have positive distractions scheduled into your day.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Take a walk to a park. I'm going to go to the museum tomorrow. I mean, if you look at your city, wherever you are, if you just flew there on a vacation, right? Go to Tampa, go to St. Louis. You'd be like, we're going to go to the Arch. We're going to go to Busch Gardens. We're going to go this. Well, every city has all that. And how much do you visit, and you don't have to fly in or get a hotel, right? Go to the library. I love going to the library just to look at the books. I don't take any out. And it reminds me of when I used to have to take them out. Rita says, a lot of thoughtful comments. Do you all think perseverance is the same as tenacity? I think they're all part of it. Kelly?
Yeah, no, I said that at the very beginning. I think they're interchangeable. And I said, maybe it's because I just like the word tenacious. But so many great things have been said. And one of the things that came to mind that I also think is important, and I know I've said this before, is when we are in those, down places or feeling like really blocked by something, what I remind myself of is I've already survived 100% of my bad days. And that's a pretty good track record. So even though this feels like it sucks right now, I'm going to make it through it. And it's going to be okay. And I think in the very beginning, Dawn, you were also seeing this. It's about leaning into it, right? Is knowing I can sit here all day long and that thing is still going to be there, that I'm still going to have to go through. It's not going to go away by me ignoring it. And quite frankly, it'll likely get larger if I ignore it. But lean into it and you'll be out on the other side quicker. But I know it's hard sometimes, and I'm the same, that it's like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was stuck or that I was stopped and stalled until I took that step back and looked at what's going on. And I think it was probably a sheath, something about the darkness and seeing the light. When you're in the darkness, it makes the light that much more beautiful, right? When you finally get there, but knowing that it's there. And, I think that's for me, that's about faith, is knowing the light exists even when you can't see it, and trusting it, that it will be there on the other side. And there's been times in my life when I've said to my mom, I'm like, man, I don't know, I can't handle this. Like, this is way too much. I'm feeling overwhelmed with the burden of whether it was grief or, other things. And she would tell me, Kelly, God never gives us more than we can handle. And I'd say, I just wish God didn't think so highly of me sometimes. But I also do want to go on what Kinga was saying, because I loved that. I think there is a persistence about staying positive and reminding ourselves, that's a practice. Because I'll say that I'm an optimist to my core. I will find the silver lining in absolutely everything. But I still am human, and I have those moments where I'm like, God, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm so not seeing this. And going back to what we were saying earlier too, about having grace, but being aware of how we're acting and feeling, that's so much a part of the process. And being able to say, like, wow, why am I feeling this way? This is not my norm. I'm not feeling my positive self. I'm feeling, and that's when, for me anyways, I reach out to, and I'm very blessed with an incredible core group of friends and family that I can call and be like, man, I am in a funk and I don't know why, but this is how I'm feeling. Because sometimes all we really need to do is say it out loud and even just hear ourselves say it and be like, oh my gosh. Or just getting that feedback from someone that's coming from a place of compassion and empathy to be like, hey, you need to get out. You need to go for a walk. You need to go breathe. You need all of those things. Those are so important. And I think, and that's part about being self-aware. I know when I'm feeling in a funk, I usually start journaling a little bit more. I'll try to go on more walks because I'm like, you need to move and do something. But writing for me helps a lot. And it helps me see things more clear for whatever reason. But I think it's just having that self-awareness of, you know what, along this path that I'm trying to reach this goal, why am I feeling stuck right now? And why does this part of the path seem so difficult for me? And why am I afraid to move forward? I mean, that's a big part. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of failing, which is ridiculous because you're not failing. And I love the whole thing. It's a report card. And it's not failure. It's part of the process. Yeah. So I don't know. This is going in so many great, and I'm loving the comments today. I mean, they're always really great, but there's just a lot of really incredible ones. And so Kinga, I will toss it back over to you.
Yeah, so I noticed in the comments we have Christine in here and talking about a lot of stress lately, taking care of her dad with dementia and now having COVID. Yeah, and going through a lot and then just kind of acknowledging that this too shall pass. So I've recognized in my life these moments where it just feels like overwhelming, things are piling up, and it's easy to forget that it will pass and to give yourself. And so again, leaning into that moment, giving yourself that recognition, but oftentimes to what you're speaking about, Kelly, like where it feels good to just have that network too, that just kind of embraces you and reminds you that you're not alone. I something that I really enjoyed doing at work as a leader was to be people's hype person. So I really enjoyed finding the qualities that make somebody unique. And I try to do this in my personal life too. I want people to feel seen and what makes them stand out to me, because that really feels like a genuine compliment. And so I recognize them for what feels unique. And oftentimes I think that makes people feel lonely in this world when you feel unseen. And everybody needs kind of a hype or a lift, and I think that that's a really great way that we could start in society, just making people feel a little bit more uplifted, is to recognize when, hey, you seem like you're at a really low point, back to your empathy, or just even at work, hey, I'm looking around the room and you seem a little unrecognized, and that probably doesn't feel great. Let me recognize you and make you feel a little bit more seen in this world. And that makes somebody feel like they have a network. And I think that that network, that community, that feeling like you have somebody in your corner, even though we don't know if they're having a bad day or a bad part of their life, but we recognize that maybe they're not seen. I think that all of that is really critical for society and for us to start working on our skills of how we're going to, just as a whole, become a little bit more collaborative, a little bit better at working with people that we wouldn't normally work with. And I think that this is going to become even more important, as I think I put it in the comments earlier this week, that the projections for 2027 is that 57% of the US will be freelance. That's the projection right now. And that could lead to a lot of loneliness. People are exiting a lot of businesses. One, because they don't trust their employers. So there's a major breakdown that's happening, and that's a big indicator. And then there's a major indicator too that people will need that support, and they'll need a way, communities like this, the Hour of Empower, where you need to find people that you never know how they might or might not be able to help you, but that you'll want that community of support. You'll want that network that makes you feel good, that makes you feel like you have the ability to have access to somebody that might be able to help you and that cares about you. I think that that's so important for the way that the world is headed, because there's so much of this past way of life that is not where we're headed today. The traditional family breakdown, talking about the 60s, that has changed. The sense of traditional family, the sense of traditional community in your local hometown has probably broken down some, so work and the way we work and who we work with, that's evolving.
Yeah, I think sorry. I just wanted to interject one thing in there. And totally great info that you were saying there, Kinga, but something that hit on me as you were saying all that, because one of the things that I loved about managing a team was watching, and I always managed the individual. I wasn't a manager out of the box, seeing what each strengths were, how they learned. But what I was thinking of when you were saying that, there's something so special too about when we ourselves are persistent in someone else's perseverance, because you can see it in someone else and see them like hit the block and then know, like, I need to continue to nudge them just enough to keep them going. And then when they get to the other side of it, be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I could do that. And be like, well, I did. I knew you could do that. And then you're right. I think it's going to be such an important thing for all of us to have more community and communicate, because that's already a problem with people being lonely and isolated. So I think it's important to persevere to help someone else persevere, right? To be there. So, what do I want to say? Just to be very conscious about who's around you and paying attention to people and noticing what's going on with them. Hey, they seem a little bit stuck, or they seem a little bit down. They're not themselves. I'm going to reach out and ask a question. Super important. So sorry, Don, back to you.
Well, no, it was great. And I think this whole conversation is just leveling up so many, ideas and more importantly, situations we've all dealt with. It becomes real when you remember your persevering story. And it could have been education, it could have been anything.
Yeah.
But what comes to mind is, there's a saying, knock and the door will be opened, right? And what I believe is you have to start reaching out to whoever it is you think can help you. And not everybody wants to hear it. Most people don't want to hear, oh, you're out 20 grand and you got to have it by this date or you'll lose something or whatever. But they might still help you. And two things, you got to build your reserve before you want to tap into it, right? By building goodwill with other people, by helping other people, by reciprocating. So maybe it's your turn. And until you knock and find out it's not going to be open, do you know to discount that? Right? Perseverance is never stopping in a sense, or never being stopped. I mean, you could be in neutral or even backing up a little bit. But the idea is, who can help me? And I need to go out and find that help. And I can tell you 2 times I had a week and everybody I knew, everybody I talked to wasn't there for me for multiple reasons. And both times I found somebody I had a very little acquaintance with that within 5 days gave me the money. And it was big money, 7-figure money. So it wasn't like, and it was because we created a relationship from a challenge. And some people feel, I can take care of you here. And they all benefited. So, there was something in it for them. And the point is I could have given up after I gave up, after everybody left the room and you're sitting by yourself. But I said, no, if I'm going to work until the last second, I'm going to do everything I can, because the last thing I want to know is I fought a battle and gave up before the finish. Right? If I'm in for a little, I'm in for a lot. And you never know what you don't know. And what I realized too, which people don't take into consideration, if you know you're not going to make it, if you know you're going to lose, put the best effort in at the end you can. Come in the closest second. And somebody may say, you deserve another race. That's where it builds from. So it's not absolute. You don't win or lose. You're either a winner or a loser based on how you view yourself, how you view your play. There's so many people play games they're just awful at, but they love them so much, and that's fine with them. I mean, you got people golfing who really probably shouldn't be there, but they're just having a ball. And you got some professionals who are just throwing their clubs in the water and breaking them over their knee. And I think it's also showing up as who you want, not having to become who you want. How many people say fake it until you make it? It's not a policy I really embrace. But if you can't be it, be as close to it as you can, right? If you can't be Elvis, get an Elvis outfit if that's what is going to make you feel so much better. But before we turn over to Kinga, we got a lot of comments. She says, okay, Rita gives my same thoughts, healing thoughts to Christine. Yes. Christine's a wonderful lady. I remember at the beginning of the show was here like every day for 3 months. And what I find is people never leave. They just find other places they need to go. And eventually they remember and they come back. And that's what time teaches you. I was too early in my expectation. Looking back, it was going to take 3 months. And after 3 weeks, I was freaking out, right? And I never knew the cycle that I was into. And another thing is, it is what it is. Then it's whatever you add to it for as long as you want to. you know, and it ain't going to unbreak a glass or unring a bell. Linda Zodon, always tell people to breathe. People forget when in certain moments breath is through nose and out through mouth, the count of 8, doing 8 times, make the mind. And I do that. I embrace it. It works even to go to sleep. You know, you practice breathing, you know, after so much, you just wake up and say, wow, it worked. They stopped Daffy and Donald Duck playing Monopoly. They didn't want foul play. See, a little bit of levity. Agreed on gratitude, attitude. It's universal, a lot of things we're saying. It's evergreen. This has been said for thousands of years. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. Confucius. That's true. It's not how many times you fall, it's how fast you get up. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to fall off. The key is to get back and catch up or be in the game. The game is more important than the result. You know, it's just playing the game, enjoying the game, learning from the game, and being great, you know, showing grace to the winners, tipping your hat to the people who did more, better, faster, because one day that could be you. And if not, you know, you wonder, why does someone enter a race that they know they're going to come in last? You know, you see these 10 people running 400 meters or 800 meters, and there's some 1 or 2 that are always going to end up in last. And why is it? Because they love it so much, just participating, just being a part of where all the winners are, you know, makes it worthwhile. And you know, that's why you have to define what's really good for you. And when you grow up, you learn so much from everybody else, what they think is good for you, or you adopt habits because you were around them. And then you find out they never served me possibly, but now it's time for a reinvention. And perseverance gives you that pressure to find an out. And maybe it's a better out than you could have ever figured out without that pressure. Have a cool mindset. It will help you every day. Linda's very prodigious today. You are all welcome. God shows his discipline to go out and share with helping others, help each other grow, and be prepared to help ourselves and others. So true. You know, when you get invested in somebody or something bigger than yourself, you get easier on yourself, you know. And the other thing, you know, I saw that Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, and, you know, whatever you think about him, at the end, he encapsulated his life on how to be successful and happy is have a purpose and stay busy. Right? So if you have a purpose and you're staying busy, and now I know I've got 10 different things to do, that if this isn't working, I can work on that, or I could talk to that person. So that's what I'm saying. Build your safety net before you need it. And if it's not money, it's advice. Either one can have tremendous value when you're going through difficult times. Harvey says, I like that. I've already survived 100% of my bad days. Great quote. Always feel more positive after being involved with this wonderful community. And you know what the community does? It shows everybody is the same when it gets right down to it. If it's not this, it's that. If it's not now, it's going to be, or it has been. You know, no one gets out of here alive. You know, so while you're in the waiting room, you know, why not enjoy it? Why not apply yourself? How many times would you say, when I had that chance, I should have taken it? I never want to say that to myself. You know, I want to make my chances. You know, I want to play when I'm playable. You know, you can't reserve 2 years from now or say, I'll do it then. Why not do it now and then? You know, do it twice. Nietzsche says, our ultimate game of life is to smile and just be happy. You know, I'll tell you, when I was growing up, that's all my family wanted me to be, is happy, healthy. They didn't demand anything else. You know, if I was doing good, feeling good, happy, they were happier. But as you grow up, it applies to everybody around you. Because, you know, you can't be selfish because, you know, being in a funk and then everybody is funky around you, you know, and says, why don't you just lighten up? Why can't you just be nice for a party or something we're going to or whatever? And, you know, if you could, you would. But after a while, that does sink in. You know, when people start goading you in the right way, pretty soon you nudge forward a little bit and you get over the hump. And what's so nice about it is there is a hump you can get over. What I realized when I was going through my darkest period, is I realized there's a whole different population in the world I never noticed, that used to be part of something. And now for whatever reason, they're on the sidelines, and now you're on the sidelines thinking, how could this happen to me? I was in that happy group that was walking down the street. I was enjoying myself. And now everything is like questionable. Ashief says, don't let yesterday take up too much of today, Will Rogers. Push the past back where it belongs. So true. So many great quotes that go along with perseverance. Make sure we sing and dance every time when you are free. Wow, we're getting really,
I love that.
we're opening up. Agree to go on a walk, on a talk. Harvey comes back with perseverance is belief in your path. Your path can change, but it's the strength of your belief that keeps you on the road. And it's persistence also can be cured by consistent. This show every day, Kelly's show, right? Gretchen's show, the flight attendant, all these shows are there for people to be helped by other people's stories, other people's commentaries, other people's definitions. So I don't believe in competition. Why? Because there's more need than supply.
That's right.
And there's more ways to get your supply. It's not all the same. And at a certain point, you become the speaker and you find how cathartic it is. And I think that's what some of these sessions are, is catharsis, letting things out, freeing up, freshening up, cleaning up. So many people are so focused on their external appearance.
Yes.
And it's their personal appearance. Another thing that really helped so much was exercise. They've had studies to show that quality exercise is the best painkiller in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Versus taking tranquilizers or pain stuff. And you can do it for free, right? You can walk out your door and walk until you can't walk anymore. Won't cost you a dime, but here's what you'll see. Everywhere you're walking, every tree, every car, every person, and that gets you out of yourself. And I think that's part of perseverance. Kinga, I believe it's your slot with 2 minutes and 55 to go.
I had such a great time with this conversation. I love seeing our friends on here. I saw Nicole pop up and I immediately thought of an audio room that I had joined, and a woman was sharing how she wanted to write a book, and our friend Nicole immediately hopped on and was offering to do some help with publishing and with her hey Nicole, offering with doing like her book cover, and I was like, that's my girl, because there you are offering, seeing somebody at a needy time. And the first thing she did as fast as she could was, how can I find this person to help them? And those are the kind of wonderful people that we want in our lives. And just by showing up and in those darkest times, you never know when you surround yourself by wonderful people who wants to help and who wants to help get you out of it. So
yeah, well, and we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
And we also make the best of it for each other. And once you're not alone, that's a benefit. Once everybody is going through something in one shape or form, if it's not this, it's going to be that, right? It's always going to be something. That's actually in Joe and the Volcano. That was what Meg Ryan said to Tom Hanks, is because anyway, without going into detail, it's always going to be something with you, and if you see the movie, you'll understand.
That's so funny. I haven't thought about that movie in decades.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Actually, Meg Ryan plays 3 different roles in it.
Funny.
Help move thoughts to something else. Dennis comes back with, that's why you wear hats, so you can tip it to help others. So true. Hats used to be part of our solutions. I mean, men in 90-degree heat would have their little hat with their little feather in it, or whatever, baseball cap. I mean, everybody had a hat. I don't know what happened to all the hat makers. Agreed, do it now and then it's a game. Let me see, Danny's here. Danny's just a great guy from England. We must be careful that perseverance is not the same as stubbornness. For me, perseverance is in chasing a vision or goal, but being flexible to change routes. stubborn as head down. So right, you know, and sometimes people disguise what they're doing to make them feel more virtuous, you know, that I'm persevering. No, you're just staying stuck, you know, you're not the line, you are the line. Look on his give names and people's great. I think we covered it well. Beverly's here. So happy to see you, Beverly. Love that, Dennis. So final words, Kinga, and then we'll have final words from Kelly.
Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing your stories with us, and please continue to keep the comments going because I still want to learn more about our wonderful audience, and thanks for having me.
Well, you bet, Kinga. Always a pleasure. Kelly, you know, I can't talk enough about you. I try to, but never can finish. I did get through the comments, which was a thrill today. So,
yes.
You know, great word, Kelly.
Such a great word. And you are such the example of perseverance. You've been doing this every day for, you know, how many days? You've got to be hitting 400 here soon.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and what it's done. I mean, how many people's lives you've touched, and people being here, how they've touched. I mean, just an incredible community, and persevering to be out there to help others. I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying to Kinga about pushing others to reach their goals. And I think community, when we feel supported, safe, and loved, we do things that we may not have done if we didn't feel that support, because we feel stronger and are unafraid when we feel supported, safe, and loved. So I think that's incredibly beautiful. And I will end like I end all shows. Everyone go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That's so great to have a little catchphrase. And to your point, Kelly, you know, what we've created here is little ripples that go from here and move into like rivers, you know, and so many people can share what we're sharing the way we're sharing it with other people, knowing it does attract people in the best of ways, help people in small ways, and maybe getting help little bits every day prevents having yourself in a position where, oh, it's an avalanche of trouble. And, you know, and plus I think to Kelly's point, seeing light in things, you know, that most people don't notice. And here there's so much light being projected, transmitted, shared, that it can't help you but illuminate in so many different ways, and feel blessed that there is something in some people that you can grow with and build on, right? Because everything that got you here didn't take overnight, and everything that you need to move forward isn't going to happen overnight. But the beauty of it is, if you believe it's only going to get better, because in your darkest moments, you only believe it's only going to get worse. You know, it's like it isn't over yet, you know, whatever the situation. But when you see the light and the door opens and now you're back to where you are, the taste of victory is so much greater. And you come back from something you didn't think you could. And now you're back, but you're back with gratitude, humility, being humbled. That goes a long way towards not getting back in that situation, right? When you say, I'm never going to overreach like I did, or I'm not going to do those things because I know what can happen now, right? And I like it this way, you know? So anyways, you got to lose to win. You got to win to understand what losing is. And that's just part of the game. And if you realize this is just a game, right? Especially if you don't hurt anybody. You know what I mean? Everybody can have their style, everybody can have their individuality, but collectively it really, really does have stability. So with that said, very heavy today, a lot of depth, a lot of great comments. One thing I'm measuring is how many lines, because I remember 6 months ago, it was one line, one word. And now we're getting paragraphs and 4 lines and all kinds of emojis. So thank you for being a wonderful audience and growing with us over this time. It hasn't just been the show, it's been you also that I've noticed. So take care. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.